Welcome to the Andy Staples Show. I am back from vacation. Ari, I've been eating like 5-course meals twice a day for a week. My
Cruise ship food.
My calorie count app, I believe I was 16,000 calories over my target for last week. So I got some work to do.
So you were like logging every single thing you ate on a cruise ship? Because that's like Jeffrey Dahmer behavior. Okay.
I just put like cheat day 6,500 calories or whatever.
Yeah,
I ballparked it. Yeah.
Yeah. Because like the thing that I love about the cruise ship is the walking phantom pizza slice. Every time you walk to and from the pool, there's just a guy who's handing out slices, and they just put it down right on the table. You just pick it up and go.
This cruise ship has a 24-hour pizza place on deck 5. So like we had the unlimited premium dining package. So you could go to the sit down restaurants for lunch and for dinner. So we're eating these massive meals for lunch and dinner, and then reconvening at like 10:30 p.m. at the pizza place. And I'm just housing a whole pizza.
I went on a 2-week Mediterranean cruise in my mid-20s with my family, my parents and my brother. And I don't think we got the premium package because we ate lunch in a cafeteria that reminded me of a dorm room. And all it was like my plates were like macaroni and cheese, mashed potatoes, noodles, and like deep fried chicken. Like,
see, I would head up to the buffet, which one of my friends lovingly calls the floating golden corral.
It is.
And yeah. I would head up to the buffet too. I did that for breakfast one morning. I was like, I want a breakfast buffet today. So I walked up to the buffet, had some breakfast. My family was mortified. They were like, no, we paid for this extra stuff. I'm like, yeah, that's fine, but
that's fine.
There's a breakfast buffet up there, guys.
Yeah. Also, too, the breakfast buffet probably isn't that big of a drop off from what you would get at a breakfast place. Like a good breakfast buffet really knocks it out of the park. But the one thing that I really enjoyed about this, there was a pizza by the slice place on my cruise ship that was right by the pool, and they just put them on the table and people would just grab them. There was no even
just grab them on the way.
That's
beautiful. They do that with soft serve ice cream on the cruise I was on. Basically, just walk by, grab a soft serve, move on.
And there was a Johnny Rockets on our boat.
Yes,
a Johnny Rockets burger place. Did you have a Johnny Rocket? And I made it rain in that place. Because if you go to Johnny Rockets now and you just eat for two, it's like a $38 meal now because of inflation. But like I might have eaten $1,000 worth of Johnny Rockets, and they have this sauce called a St. Louis sauce. I don't know what it is. It's like a spicy honey mustardish type sauce. And it's like my favorite sauce on the face of the earth. And I've like tried to buy it by the bottle. I took a dip in that.
Yeah. We'll have to see on Amazon how much it costs to get some packets of St. Louis sauce. But you did assign me some homework over the trip. And, I got to say, it was bittersweet for me because Thursday and Friday of last week, the first 2 days of the NCAA tournament, are my favorite sports days of the year. I love them. For like 15 years straight, I was covering the first weekend of the tournament in person at some site. And so there's still some kind of residual, a lot of FOMO. And so
they didn't have the games on.
No, they don't have those channels on a cruise ship. Like they get ESPN, but ESPN isn't carrying the tournament.
Oh man.
So now fortunately I had my streaming services, my streaming bundle. Now the internet sucks on the cruise ship though.
It does.
So
it's awful. Yeah.
You're dealing with buffering, but I will say the cruise ship internet gods smiled on me because I got to watch Furman beat Virginia. I got to watch.
You saw the Phantom Pass live?
I did. I saw Princeton beat Arizona. And I saw Fairleigh Dickinson beat Purdue. And a lot of buffering in that last one, but I saw it.
Could you imagine if it buffered right when Virginia lobbed that pass up with 7 seconds left and it just stopped?
Well, so I was at Virginia Purdue the year that Virginia won the national championship, where Kihei Clark, I can't remember if Kihei Clark made the pass or the shot to put them into overtime in that game, but it was Kihei Clark making the pass, I believe, in this case. And so it was very, very strange because it doesn't feel like he should still be in college, but he is because of the COVID year. So that was very odd. But
yeah, I once took a cruise like from California to Mexico with a few buddies for a bachelor party, and it was during the NFL playoffs, and like I was worried about that, but all those channels they came through, so we're able to watch it. But it's good to have you back, and I don't know about you guys, but I finished my weekend on Gonzaga -4. I don't know if you saw how that game ended. I'll tell you if you didn't.
It was a 3-point Gonzaga win, wasn't it?
Mm-hmm. But Gonzaga hit a second free throw to go up by 6 with 0.7 seconds left, and TCU inbounded the ball, and Gonzaga let the ball dribble, because the clock doesn't start.
Yeah.
All the way to the opposing 3-point line.
Oh, no.
Dude picked it up.
Switched
3
it.
as the butt.
Oh.
And like I just say me and my wife did not say goodnight to each other last night.
Well, can we, before we get to, you gave me homework. The homework was we needed to rank the 16 schools in the Sweet 16 by football team, which we're going to do. But before we do that, can we talk about the deal you and your wife made prior to this tournament?
Yeah, if there's any car people out here, I'd love to get your take on this. But my favorite car since I was a kid has been the 2001 Mercedes SL 500. And I've always wanted to have like a third weekend car, that's a convertible to take, on dates or to drive around, just like a car that I've always liked. And I've been rooting around the internet for the last few years, and you can find one that's in really good shape for in between $12,000 and $17,000. And I want to buy one. And my wife gets aggressively angry at me every time I bring it up. Like it's not practical. We just had a kid. We've got other stuff going on. It's like, yes, all of that stuff is true. By the way, I don't think 19,000 purses in a shoe closet the size of a small apartment is practical either, but I rest my case.
Did you break down the cost of the 2001 Mercedes S-Class in terms of Louis Vuitton bags? It's basically,
that's what I'm saying. Like
it's basically 5 Louis Vuitton bags,
and it's just built. It's bought over time, so it's less. It's less of a shock to the system.
About the same amount of leather as 5 Louis Vuitton bags. If you really,
it does, but
and it also contains a lot of machinery.
Yeah, well, like the thing that I'm afraid of is I'll buy the thing, and then something will happen with like the hard top conversion to the convertible, or something like mechanical will happen, and like parts and stuff. And Mercedes, I get it. Like you could buy a $15,000 car and owe $15,000 a month later on some stupid fix that you didn't know was wrong with it. So like I understand the risks of it. But she made me a deal that and she gave me a $1,000 budget, and she said if I could turn it into $15,000 by the end of the NCAA tournament, that I could buy the car. But if I lose the $1,000, then I can't bring it up for 3 or 4 more years. So I took the bet because I'm an idiot. And I got the 1,000 up to 5,100 in the first weekend to Saturday. And then I got absolutely destroyed on Sunday. Destroyed. And now I'm back down to like 2150 or something, which, I'm still alive. But the thing that I am holding on to the most is that I bet, and this is cheating, and she doesn't listen to the show religiously enough, but I bet in February because a good buddy of mine gave me a tip that said bet Miami 44-1 to win the national championship.
You got a future here.
So I have $100 on that for 4,400 of it. Okay. And I watched them play last night, and they looked, and I thought about hedging. Didn't. They looked awesome. And I'm hoping that will at least create some hedge opportunity in order to get there. But I finished my night on Sunday evening watching the Gonzaga game late into the evening, and that was not a good vibe for my goal. And it was a lofty goal, and she's a crafty woman. She knows what she's doing because she knew I was going to bet that much over the course of the tournament anyway. So basically what she did was she gave me a hard budget. So if I lose, I can't bet anymore, and contained me. But, I'm a dreamer, and I'm trying my best to get this done. I hit Fairleigh Dickinson in the first round 4-1 with like 8 minutes left to win the game against Purdue.
There you go.
That helped. But yesterday was a horrid day for me. I will never forgive Marquette. I will never forgive Gonzaga for not stopping the ball. Like, just have a pulse. Because that was a huge swing for me. But
they don't care. Just prove
stop
that
the
those
ball.
Guys don't
just stop
care.
it. The game's over. You don't need to let them If I were on the other team, I would
spread.
Care. I would care. It's not about the point spread. It's the principle. You don't want some guy draining a 3 in your face right at the. Just
why do you care? You won. There's nothing they can do about it.
I know they don't care. It's sad, but there's a lot of everybody's saying, "Oh my God, TCU, the cover of a lifetime." There's a lot of people like me on the other end of that. So anyway, we will see how it goes. But I will say one thing: marriage tip or marriage question from somebody like you who's been in it for a long time.
Yeah,
this practicality thing. Do you kids? Do you get this practicality thing? Because it's not practical. It's that I don't want to do it. Because when she wants to buy something that's not practical,
right?
I go, okay.
I feel
jewelry's not practical.
We're both pretty practical, so we don't usually have that argument. Like the most expensive thing we've done is put in a pool in our house. Yeah. But we both agreed, and we checked how the market was working. We both agreed that every dollar we put in, we could get back out if we had to sell the house.
That's a nice sound investment.
It wasn't
Did you do
really
this in COVID or before COVID?
In 2021. So here's how that happened. One of our neighbors was walking his dog, told me he was about to sell his house, and it's 3 doors down from us, and it's newer. And my wife loves that house, and she's like, "Should we buy that house?" I'm like, "No, we should not. We are not moving 3 doors down because it would be significantly more than our house." And I'm like, "No, we're not doing that." And she's like, "But that house has that nice pool, and it has a nice pool house." I'm like, "We're not selling our house and then buying another house to move 3 doors down." And so I call her back the next day. I was like,
"Well, how much better is that house?"
There are things about it that are better, but there are things about our house that are better than that house. For instance, we have a big driveway, we have a much bigger yard. And so I was like, okay, call back. Compromise. What if we put in a pool? And she's like, okay, deal. And that was that. And we got it locked in right before all the materials costs skyrocketed. So we got kind of lucky.
Okay, because like we priced it in COVID.
Yeah.
Or it's been post-COVID because we bought our house a year and a half into COVID. So it's like still kind of it was in the tail end of it, but it was still in COVID. And it cost because all our backyard is a bunch of grass. There's nothing back there. Mm-hmm. And it was going to be $100,000, which growing up in Arizona, that's such a foreign thing to me.
Well, no, it wasn't going to be $100,000. It was going to be $175,000 by the time we were done. So
yeah, and we heard too that what they quote you is never what it turns out to be.
Not even close.
And it's like I'm not going to sink 107. Like, and as much as I would love a pool, I mean I thought that like a pool would be like 25 or 30. Like it didn't even dawn on me.
That's what our parents would have paid for one.
Yeah. Well, sometimes with me too, it's like I'm still back in 2005 with how much things cost. Because like I had it stuck in my head. Like I always thought that like as a kid, if you bought $1 million home, mm-hmm. that you were like living in Laguna Beach or your house was 9,000 square feet. And now I look at Zillow in a lot of cities, but in Dallas, especially because we have some friends moving here who are looking to buy a home and you can't get anything.
Yeah.
In the city of Dallas, that is anywhere close to what I would anticipate $1 million house would be.
Right. Yeah. What $1 million buys is not what our kid brains imagine.
Yeah. It would be. I'm still adjusting to that. So
yeah. So it is amazing. And now we've got some folks in the chat. Wakey Ski is asking how we're going to rank, or Cole Schramm asks how we're going to rank Creighton. It says Creighton doesn't have football. That'll be an easy one as we rank the Sweet 16 schools by football team. And Wakey Ski says, can we count Nebraska for Creighton? No, we cannot.
No.
If you don't have football, that's a choice. Creighton used to have football. They don't have football anymore. I believe the Creighton football team.
Do you have it in your big Andy brain that remembers everything like an elephant, which programs used to have one and all that stuff?
No, it's funny because I actually was getting Creighton confused with Drake for a minute. Drake does have a football team. So Creighton's in Omaha, has a good basketball program. Drake is in Des Moines, also has a good basketball program. But Drake has a Pioneer League football team. Like they play non-scholarship FCS football now. Creighton does not. I had to go look it up. Creighton has not played football since the 40s. I believe World War II basically ended their program. So,
and now look at them.
Yeah.
Alex Kirshner from Split Zone Duo tweeted, and it's kind of related to our podcast last night. It made me laugh. He goes, you know what I love? And this isn't exactly what he said, but this is the point. He goes, I love the NCAA tournament because I get to watch a bunch of teams that can't compete in football have the spotlight for once. For instance, right now I'm watching Creighton, Fairleigh Dickinson, FAU, and Michigan State play, and it's amazing. Like, it was
that's cold. That's awful.
It just made me laugh because like it was like it was just like, you know, he was just trying to be funny, but like it is
they did win paradox. The Peach Bowl 2 years ago.
No, I know, but no, compete for a national championship.
I know.
But they made the playoff, so you know. But it was just a funny way of looking at it because it is really, really interesting to me how hard it is to be truly great at both. And Florida accomplished that for a few years.
Well, and remember, Florida and Ohio State played for the football and basketball championship consecutively. Yeah, that was crazy. Like, we'll never see anything like that again.
Yeah, that is pretty crazy. But in terms of sustainability, though, you know, there are teams that have good years, you know, but like I don't know anything about basketball, but I don't anticipate Alabama being a Final Four contender every year moving forward. Now they just recruited.
As long as Nate Oates is there.
Yeah, I mean, maybe they are. Yeah, I don't know.
He took them deep a couple years ago. In 21, the first tournament back from COVID, he took them deep, and they've been good since he's been there. So
Brandon Miller's their best player, right?
Yes, and he's going to be one and done, and he'll be gone. Yeah,
which isn't it's great because it's like the reason why Alabama is good at basketball right now is the same exact reason that they're good at football. Brandon Miller was a 5-star prospect who, right?
Well, like, Alabama's pretty deep in basketball.
No, I know, but if you take in basketball, my rudimentary knowledge of basketball, and if you're a huge basketball nut and you want to pull your hair out, I'm sorry. But all it does take is one lottery pick to really change your team dynamic from pretty good to this team can make a run if it gets hot, right?
Yeah.
Like, don't you have to have 2 or 3 lottery picks on your team to win a national championship in basketball?
You don't need 2 or 3. And I mean, actually, if you look at some of the teams that have won lately, like that Villanova team in 2018, they were not a big NBA
Did Baylor
team.
have a guy?
Baylor had multiple guys.
Yeah.
That Baylor team was insanely talented. So, but Alabama is very deep. I mean, I'm counting up 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Yeah, 9 guys who average more than 15 minutes a game. Like, that's not normal. And then they've got a couple guys at 8 and 9 minutes a game. So
their 2022 class has 5 top 100 players in it.
Yeah,
in basketball.
Yeah, so basically, like yes.
When did that happen?
when Nate Oates got there. That's what happened.
Like we're veering too much into like the I have to know about basketball discussion. Yeah. I don't know anything about Nate Oates' background. So like
he coached at Buffalo.
Okay.
Hired by Danny White, the current Tennessee AD, and he was a longtime high school coach, Romulus High School in Michigan. You know where the Detroit airport is. Basically.
Yeah, I've stayed there multiple times. That Marriott, the Romulus Marriott, that has that long hallway.
That's exactly right. I have stayed there many times.
6 mile walk to your room. Yeah.
All right. So the easiest thing here is that the number 1 team in our ranking and all of the reseeded Sweet 16 rankings, and actually the committee's bracket too, the number 1 overall seed is still Alabama. Whether it's our football ranking or their basketball ranking, Alabama's number 1. Number 2, I had to think about this a little bit.
We're going to be really, really far. Like, why don't you explain the criteria that you went by?
All right. So I went with just where they're at right now as football programs, just right now. And based on what we've just seen in the last few years. I'm not thinking of recruiting ceiling. I'm thinking of results on the field.
How can you not think about like how they've recruited though?
Oh, I am thinking about how they've recruited.
Okay, but not like what it would be if it was perfect.
Right. Exactly. It's not It's not a blue sky situation. It is. Here's where they are, which is why the number 3 team on mine, if we were doing the other, how they recruited, might be the number 7 team if we did it that way. So, but Alabama number 1, I think we probably have the same number 2.
I don't know Tennessee. That we do.
Tennessee?
Tennessee is my number 2. Yeah.
Okay. Yep.
Then
great season. it looks like they could plug in Joe Milton fairly seamlessly. I was kind of surprised. Let's have a real football discussion while we're doing this. Sorry.
Yeah.
Because we haven't talked about this as much as I would like to. Were you surprised at how seamlessly Joe Milton fit into that offense? Yes, against Vandy, but that was a Vandy team that just beat in Florida. But against that Clemson defense, he looked really good.
Yeah. If I'm supposed to believe that Anthony Richardson is the number 1 overall pick in the draft and might be a really great NFL quarterback,
if Joe Milton has a big year this year, he will be
the number 1 pick again.
Nah, Caleb Williams will still be the number 1 pick.
Oh, Caleb Williams will be, yeah.
But it'll be like it'll be Caleb, Drake, and Joe. It won't just be Caleb and Drake.
I just don't know. Like, the thing that is always a discussion is inaccuracy fixable?
Right.
And some people think that it is, and some people think that it isn't. But I've watched Joe Milton enough in my day, because he started his career off at Michigan, to know that this guy's arm will make your jaw drop.
Yes.
I also have seen him throw it, as SC Scout Guy just said, over the mountains when he didn't mean to. Exactly. It's like, so, like, can you fix that? And
that's the big question, because remember, he cruised to the starting job at Tennessee in the 2021 offseason. Cruised to it. There wasn't even it didn't even feel like a competition. And then he starts the first game and is pretty scattershot, gets dinged a little bit in the Pitt game. They bring in Hendon Hooker, and they're like, no, Hendon Hooker's the guy.
Right. And like, to me too, it's like, I wonder, like, is inaccuracy nerves? Is inaccuracy, putting pressure on yourself to perform? Like, to me, like, if Joe Milton is the starting quarterback this year, he's going to have to win that job again too, right? Because Nico's on the roster, and Nico was there in the spring. So, like, if he is just adequate, there's a chance he could lose the job. So, if I am supposed to believe that you can fix Anthony Richardson, then I'm going to blindly hope that you could do the same.
Yeah, Stephen Wilson says in the Vandy and Clemson games, he had maybe 2 egregious overthrows. That sounds about accurate. Now, he was not as accurate against Vandy as I had remembered. I went back and looked. He was 11-21 in that game. It's not like they needed a lot out of that. They were killing Vandy. They beat him 56-0. But the Clemson game, he completed 67.9% of his passes, 9 yards per attempt. That's a really good output for that offense. And that's what you want. And that's against
the things that don't show up in the box score, though, are the fly route that breaks wide open that he overthrows by 9 yards.
Right.
And it's like, that's just a 0 for 1 incompletion in the box score, but that's a 6-point swing or 7-point swing in the game.
Right.
So, but like, yeah, I mean, I think that they clearly have the tools there. In Tennessee too, and I don't want to turn this into an NIL recruiting discussion, but when you think about direction, I think that of all the teams that are in the Sweet 16, it's easy. It's about as easy with Tennessee to buy into the direction they're headed in overall, as well as anybody else. So, like, to me, I thought that was a pretty easy number 2, but number 3, I think will probably be the same for us too. Then
I had K-State number 3.
I have K-State number 3.
Yeah, defending Big 12 champs. Yeah. By the way, recruiting quarterbacks, they got themselves a big one this year too.
Mm-hmm. They've done it.
Now,
they've done it.
Will Howard's back. Will Howard's supposed to be the starter this year.
Yeah, Kansas State. That's the thing too. It's like, if you're listening to the show, you're going to be like, holy crap, I can't believe I already did it. But I suspended recruiting results with this one because I'm not going to drop the team that just won the Big 12 below another Big 12 team because of recruiting. They just won the Big 12.
They also recruited a top. Avery Johnson's a top 100 player, isn't he? He's a top 10 quarterback. I know that.
I don't know that he was when he committed, but he grew into one.
Yeah. And that was an interesting one because Kansas was one of the states where high school players were allowed to do NIL deals. And so I wonder if that played into his decision to stay home, or was a case because K-State has never really been one that goes after that type of player, but they had one in their backyard. They went after him and got it.
Well, when he's in the state, you go and get him. That's a big win. But like, Kansas State's only 2 years removed from when they got Jake Rubley out of Iowa. And he was, I believe, a top 200 player. and a top 25 quarterback.
He'll probably, I would probably go into spring practice as the presumed backup. We'll see what, how that works.
And yes, they lost to Texas on road, Bronco. We know that, but they also beat everybody else that Texas lost to and then won the conference.
Yes. It wasn't a situation where they were tied in terms of Big 12 record. And
Texas we're not the college football playoff committee. We're not doing the head-to-head here. We're ranking programs right now based on the field accomplishments and direction of the program. And frankly speaking, if you're expecting me to overrank Texas like I've done for the past 6 years of my life, I'm reformed. I went to the gym this morning. I'm drinking a DC right here. Like I'm a new man.
Yeah. No, listen. I understand exactly where you're coming from, but I thought, Chris Kleiman has done a phenomenal job at K-State. They seem to know what they are, and they
play hard. They play hard.
They're disciplined. They do have to replace Deuce Vaughn and Felix Anudike-Uzomah, but I'm not worried about them doing that. I am looking at them as potentially a perennial title contender in the new Big 12 when it becomes what it is, but also a team that could compete this year with the 14 school lineup.
Yeah. So this is where it got really tricky for me. This is like the first 3 were easy. The next 4 or 5 were insanely difficult.
So I went with
basically it turned into a game show of how much am I going to disrespect Texas right now?
Hold on. Before we do that, Ryan Wagner, Texas skull drag K-State. They beat them by a touchdown, and they're losing their best D lineman and running back. Okay. Who won the Big 12? Who has won the Big 12 twice more recently than Texas? Stop it.
Here's the thing,
Texas wins something, we'll put Texas up there.
I was going to say to Ryan, because listen, buddy, I'm with you. I'm sure you're a Texas fan, but even if you're not, Texas is the prettiest girl in the bar, right? The most seductive program in college football. I have been seduced over and over, and I've given in. Do something. Don't come in on March and tell me how awesome they're going to be.
We beat Kansas and K-State. Well, K-State beat everybody you didn't beat.
Do it one time. I promise you, if you do it one time, I'm back. I will be back, and I'll be the first one doing one of these halfway through on the course to being back. But there's nothing to be gained here by, if you don't like where we rank Texas and you're not going to, fix it. Win something one time.
He may like where I have them because
what do you have them at 4?
I do. If Arkansas had been a little bit better last year, I would have put Arkansas above Texas. I do realize Arkansas won the last time they played, but that was 2 years ago. So I do think Texas is the arrow is pointing up. I will say that. I will not say they are back. I will not even predict them to win the conference. I am just going to say the arrow is pointing up. Who do you have it for?
I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong. And this is my recruiting bias, maybe.
Okay.
I have UCLA at number 4.
I don't have a problem.
I thought they had their best year under Chip Kelly last year.
Yep.
They are a very seductive team too. I think they play in a winnable conference for now.
For this year.
And they just got Dante Moore.
Yes.
And I know Arch Manning. Texas is my number 5. Okay. Relax. And I almost did this to prove a point because I don't want to rank Texas high. Because all the ingredients are there and they stink every single year. And there are all the reasons in the world to continually put Texas ahead. My heart wanted to put Texas too. But if we're taking into account the season they just had and the season it's over and over again, the same season, I have to make a point. So, to me, it's like next year, which team do you think has a better shot of being successful on the field? I think you have a real case to be made that UCLA will have a better football team on the field as it pertains to their results next year.
Ooh, I have a hard time saying that because I do feel like, again, I feel like Texas seems to have the offensive line thing worked out.
Oh, they have good players?
Yeah, I know.
Tell me more.
That's not a place where they've had good players.
I know.
That's
their offensive line should be awesome.
Yeah.
Their quarterback should be good. I think people gave up on him way too soon last year. They've got better players than everybody in their conference. It's never mattered. And I'm tired of it. It makes me sick. It makes me look bad every year. I'm the one with the horns up.
All
you
right.
shamed me into this. Don't shame me out of it.
I'm not shaming you out of it. I'm with you.
They stink.
I keep saying the arrow's pointing up, but I'm not promising anything. All right. I have Arkansas number 5. And
me too.
That was a team that should have been better last year. That like the Liberty game. What the hell? Like, that's terrible. Don't lose that game. Like, right, simple stuff like that. You can be better than that. But KJ's back. So KJ and Rocket are back. Let's go.
Yeah, I mean, Arkansas has been that team, and I said I had them at 5 too. I have them at 6. I have Texas at 5.
Yep.
That has shown a lot of promise early in seasons. I think like it's very easy to buy in what Sam Pittman is selling. And then they're like 5-0 or 5-1 or 6-0, and then they play Georgia, and it's like
they play this game Alabama, and
and it's like, to me, it's like the spread is always like 18 points, and it's like, God, that's a lot of points for this Arkansas team. They're really good, and then it's like 28-0 at the end of the first quarter. Yeah. And then last year, I sat through Arkansas's loss to A&M in Dallas, and that was a game that we should have won.
AJ doesn't reach the ball over, they win the game.
But Arkansas, to me, strikes me as like, what's their schedule this year? Let's go look that up really quick. If they could get through the first 7 games of the year and maybe sidestep that like middle season disaster and really get things cooking, that they could have a surprise season.
Well, I'm not as worried about this year's schedule as I am going forward, because I actually think Arkansas' schedule is going to get easier with the new SEC.
Yeah.
When the new SEC comes in, they don't have to play Alabama every single year. They don't have to play, I think their every years are going to be Texas.
Oh boy,
probably A&M and Missouri. So
I just looked at their schedule. It's gonna be rough.
Yeah, because you're at LSU for the first conference game.
And then home at A&M, and then Ole Miss and Alabama. No, this one, this might be a different type of Arkansas.
Now I will say, here's what can happen. So they're Western Carolina, Kent State, BYU to start. Unless BYU is significantly better, Arkansas can win that game. If you can go 1-3. In the A&M at LSU, or the at LSU, A&M, at Ole Miss, at Alabama. Then your Mississippi State at home, at Florida, Auburn, Florida International, Missouri stretch. You can finish strong. So that's a team that can be 8-4 realistically if everything falls right. 9-3 if everything really falls right.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. But I'm thinking about a breakthrough Kentucky-like season where they are playing for a spot in the SEC championship game in November, but their schedule would have to break the right way.
That's going to be tough. And we're assuming LSU and Alabama are both going to be pretty good, and like Alabama we know is going to be good. We're assuming LSU is going to be as good or better.
A&M could be really, like, that's another one where I don't want to but they could be.
Yeah.
God, that would be awesome if Texas and A&M were just awesome.
Right when Texas gets into the league?
Yeah, like what if they go into if they both go 10-2 or 11-1 next year? Or whatever, and have really good years, and then their first year back, they're both like really awesome.
It would be something. It would give us a lot to talk about this time next year. So I had UCLA number 6. I
overranked them, didn't I?
I don't necessarily think so. I think they could, like, because Chip Kelly has shown me something here. I was worried, and I said this when he got hired at UCLA. He changed the game at Oregon. He used a clock rule change, took advantage of that, created a paradigm shift that everybody had to adjust to. When he came back from the NFL, he couldn't do that. There was nothing he could do that would create something like that. So he had to just figure out how to win. And it took a while, but the way they play feels like it travels.
It does. So, and also too, the thing that impressed me the most about UCLA last year was that they were winning games in the trenches. Like the way they were beating up teams, like physically. Yeah. Because I always like viewed them as kind of like a finesse, spread them out, try to be faster and cuter than everybody. And they pounded people last year.
Yeah.
But of course they're another team that always loses random games to teams they shouldn't lose to also. But okay. So now the question I have for you is moving forward. What are we on? We're on 8 now.
This is where I might make some people mad, and I didn't know what to do because there's 2 Power 5 teams that we have left. Well, one that's going to be.
Did you do 7?
I have not mentioned my 7 yet.
Okay, all right. I just wanted to make sure we were on the same track.
We're both at number 7, so I'm just going with what we've seen the last few years or last year or so, and my 7 is Houston.
My 7 is also Houston.
Now,
I didn't know what to do with P5 versus Group of 5, but Houston has had. Listen, Miami and Michigan State are both teams that I could understand buying stock in right now because the stock is low, but it could shoot to the moon, right?
Correct. Yes.
But just because they're in the Power 5 doesn't give them right away here when Houston's joining a Power 5 conference.
Right. And Michigan State is so hard to judge because, yes, they had the really good 2021, but it feels like they just hit the right combo of transfers, Kenneth Walker being the big one. And they were bad in 2020. They were bad in D'Antonio's last year. They were bad last year. So
and they had some off the field incidents last year that can distract your growth.
Right. So I don't feel like they're quite there yet. And so Houston under Dana Holgorsen has been fairly consistent. They were really good 2 years ago. They were just okay last year. Their defense took a pretty big step back last year. Their offense was still pretty productive. But, Clayton Toon's gone. Tank Dell's gone.
He is?
I know, right? It seems like
after all those years?
Yeah. Which one after all those years with both of them?
Yeah. I didn't know if they were like not twins, just brothers with the same name. 2 years apart or something. But okay, so now if we both have Houston at 7, I think 8 and 9 is interesting because I do.
Well, no, I have somebody else at 8 in the group of 5.
I don't, but
San
Diego State.
Yep.
I would have given them the nod if they got the bid into a Power 5 conference already.
Well, they still might.
They still might, but it hasn't
give it time. Yet. Yeah.
So I have San Diego State 10, and I have the 2 dysfunctional P5 teams at 8 and 9.
All right. How did you decide who to put ahead of who?
I put one. This was impossible. I like what Michigan State is doing from a recruiting standpoint. I still have my doubts about whether or not it can be effective or it can work like long term. Because as you saw, they had all these great prospects come in last year, and it didn't really go according to plan. Yeah. But I also feel like Michigan State has had more of a track record of winning. I think you can win there. So I put them ahead of Miami.
Recent track record.
Obviously,
Miami had
they have a
good track record in the 80s and 90s.
In the 80s and 90s, yes. Miami strikes me as I'm trying to say this in a way where it's not, well, maybe it should be, but cut into a promo and then everybody hates me. I feel like Miami is a worse version of dysfunction than Texas as it pertains to what they have going for it and the results that we've seen, because Miami has been bad.
I don't think they were bad last year. I think they were just average before. And that was the problem because you're putting average up against what they were.
Well, whose ceiling is higher to you?
Amazing. Texas or Miami? Texas
has
more resources.
So the reason why I have a hard time with this is that during my childhood growing up, the U was happening.
Mm-hmm.
And during my childhood growing up, Texas had some great teams in the early 2000s. They won their national championship with Vince Young and stuff. But to me, Miami was always the big bad wolf of college football.
That's because Miami was great across a couple of eras. And that Texas was good in the Mac Brown era, but was not really great any other time in your lifetime.
And Texas has more money, right?
Much more money. Although Miami is now spending like that. So we will see.
But Miami has an aggressive NIL situation.
Right.
And they are probably closer to prospects in the state of Florida. I would say it's probably easier for Miami to recruit Florida. I don't know. Maybe that's wrong. It is increasingly harder for Texas. Let me
disabuse everyone of the notion that it's easy to recruit in Florida. It's not.
No, it's the hardest thing in the world.
Everybody. Yeah.
Yeah, no, trust me. I know some coaches who used to coach down there. I know it's the swamp down there, right?
Right.
But also, too, I think you could make the case, and I'm going to be maybe writing a story about this later today, that it's the hardest that Texas will ever have to work for Texas prospects than it's ever been.
That's a great story. I look forward to reading that because I understand just basically thinking back through the last few years why you're saying that and why that's true. It's still amazing to me that's the case, but it'd be like
it's just it's not about Texas,
the Florida thing to other people. Like for Florida State, Miami, it's super hard to get the best players in Florida right now.
The thing that's tough with Texas is they've been down, and you might be like, that's the reason, but it's also the rise of NIL. It's also the rise of A&M. It's the fact that Oklahoma now has a really good coach that's a good recruiter. LSU is a brand that is continuing to have staying power.
Right, and going into the state of Texas and getting players. And Alabama
teams
goes
like
into the
Bama's
state of
in Texas. Ohio State spends a ton of time in Texas. And it's just like, if you are in the state of Texas as a top 100 player, and I was talking to a 5-star cornerback at the Under Armour camp last week, and everyone was asking him, what do you think you're going to do? And he goes, I don't care if I stay in state. And it's like, that probably wasn't the case for the same player 20 years ago. And Texas, as you go back and look at their class last year, a lot of their players weren't from Texas, and they've had to respond. Like, Texas is one of the few teams, I think maybe of 10 teams in the entire country, that could build a national championship roster if they could only take players in their own state. But they have to kind of pivot because there are really good players from the state of Texas leaving at a pretty alarming rate. And it's a huge state, geographically speaking. Like, Austin is probably as far away from Dallas as what's further away from Dallas than LSU is from Houston, right? So, like, I mean, it's a huge geographical.
Well, no. It's not further away from Dallas than I'm sorry. I misunderstood.
How far away is Baton Rouge from Houston?
It's about 4.5 hours.
Yeah, and isn't Austin like 4.5?
It's 3 hours to Dallas, unless I-35 is really blocked up. Yeah.
Which it is every time.
If you got a bunch of traffic through Temple or through West or one of those cities, then
it's just a absolute dogfight in this state.
Yeah, it is.
USC's in Texas now all of a sudden.
Yeah. No, it's the best player. It's football recruiting is now basketball recruiting. Like, nobody cares where you're from. It doesn't matter. Nobody cares about staying home, that's not true. Not nobody, but the top players don't care about staying home. They're more interested in creating a super team with their friends, like, because they can, and they meet these people and they get to know them, and they kind of get the idea of, hey, we're all going to play together. And if that place is far away, that's not that concerning to them because they're already going to be with their group.
Texas signed the number 3 class last year, and 15 of their players from Texas, right? So it's not like it's not.
Right, but
Texas
it used
always
to be
Texas. But 3 of their top 6,
not from Texas. Yeah, it used to be a 20, like in the Mac Brown era, they'd sign 25, 24 of them would be from Texas, and the 25th would be somebody who had a family connection who just grew up in another state, or would be Texas Jordan Hicks, who was a 9-star recruit
out of Florida. Listen, they lost out on Reuben Owens, right? 5-star running back last year who ended up at A&M.
Yep.
Texas responded by replacing that with 5-star running back Cedric Baxter out of Orlando. And it's like, I think that like those types of pivots are necessary and very hard, for anyone. So, Texas has everything that it should to sign top 5 classes. They certainly could win one of the 10, 15 teams, I think, that could win a national championship. I just want to see them. I want to see them do that. But Miami's dysfunction seems to be everywhere else but the field, and then it leaks onto the field. And I'm wondering if this NIL situation is going to be a net positive or a net negative in 5 years.
Yeah, I mean, I still am of the mind, and I want everybody to get as much money as possible. But if you sign mostly people who just want the biggest bag, that will not create a good team.
So, yeah, I'm with you on that. I don't think that you can buy a national championship.
Yeah. Yeah, you got to develop one still, or find the people who, money's great, but it's not the first consideration.
But
because they're going, I'm
gonna
make my money by being really good here. Like, there are players who think that way. I know everybody thinks no 18-year-old would ever think that way. There are players who think that way.
DJ Lagway does, or right now he does.
There's an example, but I mean, I would say that some of those players are going to Alabama, Georgia, Ohio State, Notre Dame, places like that, where they go, you know what? Those are massive brands. If I'm good there, I'm gonna make a bunch of money.
Yeah, and if money isn't the top thing for a player to pick Miami, then Miami just has to be the top choice for that player, which hasn't been the case very often.
Yeah, it's not, and it's not the case where none of these kids have grown up when Miami was cool. Like, when we were growing up, Miami was cool. Like, if Miami football wanted you, it's like, oh my God, like, I could be a Cane. Like, that's not the same thing anymore. Those, even kids in South Florida, it doesn't mean the same thing to them. So, all right. So we got Michigan State and Miami. I had Michigan State ahead of Miami. Like you said, it doesn't matter. My next one, shout out Jim Morrow working a miracle and bringing UConn to a bowl game.
Yeah, woo! I did not know what to do with UConn.
Well, only Florida Atlantic was bad last year, and they ended up firing Willie Taggart. They've hired Tom Herman. My suspicion is they will be significantly better this year, and if we did this next year, that Florida Atlantic would be above UConn.
So I have FAU at 11 and then UConn at 12.
All right. Well, I'm fine with that, but I want to give Jim Moore credit for bringing UConn to a bowl game.
Yeah. Now, let me see. Maybe UConn would be number 3 on this list if they do it a few more years in a row. No, it was nice to see a moderately functional UConn football team. Like, when you watch them play, it looked like they were like playing football, which hasn't always been the case with them for the past few years. Okay, so now we get to the grab ass portion, I think, right? Am I forgetting anybody?
I mean, it's not grab ass. I mean, Princeton went 8-2 last year. Finished one game behind the standings in the Ivy League. Yale won the league, but Princeton was 5-2 in league play. Finished tied for second with Penn. So nothing wrong with that.
Well, Princeton is my 13 because they're just so smart. I don't know.
Also, because they also play football, and none of the other ones
play
do.
Football, and the final 3 don't. But like, also too, it's like you said you ranked based on what it would be like if they did have a program, and it's like New Jersey's a pretty good spot for recruiting. You know,
Ari, they're Princeton. They can recruit nationwide.
Hey, this is when you tell everybody you almost went there. Tell them.
No, I'm not going to say that. What I will say is you've got the lawsuit going on where they're trying to, the athletes are suing the Ivy League schools, trying to get the Ivies to allow athletic scholarships. And I'm telling you right now, if the Ivies allow athletic scholarships, you could create some pretty damn good football teams.
Yeah. It's like the Stanford discussion on steroids.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, like, if you're, let's say you're a Power 5 prospect, but probably not quite Alabama or Ohio State level. And all of a sudden, Harvard and Princeton and Yale jump into your recruitment.
Yeah. What if your finalists were Harvard, Yale, Iowa State, Arizona, and Washington State?
You're going to Harvard or Yale. You're going that's what you're doing. Like,
so how does it work now? You don't get an athletic scholarship, but you get like financial aid so that it basically is free.
Well, you get whatever age you qualify.
But they game the system, don't they?
I don't think, not really. I mean, obviously it's different than when I was coming through. They certainly didn't then. Like, they said, here's the FAFSA form. You fill this out and it'll tell you how much you can get in grants and loans to come here. And when that piece of paper came back, when I opened the envelope, I was like, well, nope, I'm not doing that because I'll be dead to my eyeballs forever.
I wrote a story for The Athletic a few years ago about this kid named Cooper Barcade, who was a 3-star prospect out of Southern California. He played at Mater Dei, and he chose Harvard despite having Power 5 offers. And the reason why he did it was because his plan was to go to Harvard, get his 4-year degree, and if he's very good at football, transfer to a P5 school for his final year. So get the degree,
and
then
guy points out they don't allow graduate students to play sports. So you've got a lot of fifth year, as SEC Scout guy points out, a lot of SEC baseball teams have Ivy transfers that are playing their fifth year in the SEC.
Yeah. So the plan, I think, is really, really smart because he's going to align himself with some of the best business minds or whatever. He's going to make a ton of money in the future. And then he can play football.
All of that. Exactly.
So, at a high level.
Yeah.
But also, too, I don't know what the financial situation of that is. I think he comes from a family that's able to subsidize that expense.
It has changed a little bit. They changed the financial aid model in the Ivies. I can't remember exactly when it was. It was I think after the turn of the century. But basically, they realized they were leaving the middle class out. Like the rich kids' parents could pay. If you came from a very low income family, you essentially went for free. But the middle class kids, it was really a stretch when if you could get into an Ivy League school with your grades, you could go for free to any of your state schools. So they were just picking the state schools. And so they changed that a little bit to get those people in. So I think it's a little more of an option now. Like for me, when that piece of paper came back, there was no question because I was going to a state school for free, like paying $0.
I just think it's brilliant. This kid was a top 500 player, 3-star prospect who had offers from loading up here, Arizona, Arkansas, every Ivy League school, Nebraska, Notre Dame, Oregon, Purdue, UCLA, Virginia Tech. Like he's like a legitimate prospect.
Yeah.
And he goes, I'm going to go there for 4 years. I'm going to get a diploma, and then I'll go play at Nebraska the last year.
It's very smart. How's he doing?
It was first year last year. I've got to check in on him. It was just I'm sure he's the best player on the field for them because I think he was only one of 2 players who signed in Harvard's 2021 class that even had star assignment.
Yeah. So I'll be curious to see how his plan works out because
he's probably going to be very wealthy because he has a great job if football doesn't work out, which is the entire point.
But you look at how forward thinking he was. And I think people assume that most recruits aren't like that. And probably most aren't, but a lot more than you think are thinking along those lines. They are thinking that way. Like in terms, like I remember when Deshaun Watson came out of high school, like he told Dabo Swinney, I'm going to graduate in 3 years. Because his plan was obviously to go to the NFL, but if that didn't work, then flexibility would be there. And Bryce Young, I believe, played the Sugar Bowl with a graduate patch on his jersey. Think about how fast that dude graduated from college.
But I think part of it, dude, is just your parents' temperament. Like if your parents think that way and instill it in you, then it's easier to think that way. Like I'm going back and I read the lead of the story. I'm going to read this lead to you. Harold Barkate took his son Cooper to an Anaheim Angels game 8 years ago. He asked Cooper, who was 9 at the time, playing for his youth baseball team, what he thought the best job would be on the team. Cooper said he'd like to be a starting pitcher. That's a perfectly fine answer for a kid, but Harold was quick to point out that wasn't the right job. The correct answer being the owner of the baseball team. Like that, like it's like the lesson that this guy's giving his 10-year-old.
Not really a job you apply for, though. You sort of have to work your way to that.
No, I know, but like this is like the thought process of
don't
like so this kid
don't be a millionaire, son. Be a billionaire.
Yeah. It's like so. I mean, it's like that to me. It's just like it's not a coincidence when certain people, view the world a certain way. But like also too, just like when I went down to speak with DJ Lagway and wrote that story about Florida's 5-star quarterback commitment, he thought very pragmatically because his father does.
Yeah, and well, you want to talk about Houston area quarterbacks with dads who are, who understand the game very well and how everything works. Jalen Hurts and his dad.
Yeah.
They had it all figured out too. I mean, they had planned. And then when they got thrown a curveball with him getting benched in the national title game, they came up with the best plan based on the situation. Stay at Alabama one more year, save Alabama's bacon in the SEC championship game. And then bada boom, bada bing, you're at Oklahoma and you're a Heisman finalist. So Yeah,
and you also too have to have like the temperament of wanting to get your ass kicked in the classroom, because it's like if you go to Harvard, it's like it's not just one thing to be like, yeah, I'm going to go there and in 4 years I'll have a Harvard degree. Like you've got to do the curriculum, And it's like for me, I went to Arizona, and you guys all know that. It's like I don't feel like I worked all that hard academically in college, and I still got a 3.0. And a lot of that was student newspaper working. That was where the brunt of my work came in. But like I don't know if I would have. Like, what would it be like for just a regular 3.4, 3.3 high school student who was just basically average, got 1150 or 1200 on his essay? Could I have even gone to Harvard and passed, or am I not smart enough?
You could have put the work in. Like I remember on my official visit to Princeton, like asking people to see their homework so I could see what they were doing. And I felt like it was stuff I could do. But you have.
Well, I didn't know if there was there's a certain point that you get to. In curriculum where it's either you're smart enough to do this or you're
well,
not.
You also are picking it at schools like now the Ivies. You're probably picking kind of a liberal arts type. You're majoring in something that isn't necessarily they don't have journalism schools. Like you're going to major in English or you're going to major in history. But if you think,
imagine finance at Harvard, all the math courses you'd have to pass. And all the like accounting courses.
It's not that. It is the level of student that you are up against. So if they're grading on curves, that sort of thing, you're on the lower end of the curve. So that's the thing. It's the competition in the classroom that you're dealing with. And it's pretty fierce. Yeah. I mean, think about what those people had to do to get in. Like they had to be the best of the best.
If you just dropped 18-year-old Ari into a Harvard situation, would I have passed college even if I tried really hard?
I think I will tell you, having been around you now for a few years, you would have assessed how everyone else worked and you would have copied that, and you would have not copied their work, but you would have.
Well, I copied their work in college, so I don't know.
Hey, statute of limitations is up, I think. But
I think, can they take my diploma away for having the test in nutrition, food, and you before I took it? Remember I told you that again,
I said that's the professor's fault for being too lazy to change the questions. So
I think the entire point of college is to teach people how to be resourceful and how to get through obstacles anyway. But it's not the curriculum, it's being on your own and learning how to accomplish tasks in life.
But having watched you in action for a few years, I think you would have looked around and said, okay, what are these people doing that makes them successful?
Yeah.
And figured that out. That seems to be your
But if they drop me into a quantum physics course, I'm not sure there's anything I could do.
No, you'd be screwed, but you wouldn't major in that. You'd not be dumb enough to major in a science if you knew that was your weak spot. All right. Okay, we got to move on. We have 3 more schools to rank, and none of them play football. I found the next one very easy, and I'll tell you why. I just picked the place with the best high school football. Like, I guarantee you, Xavier has some folks on their campus who played at Archbishop Moeller, who played at St. X in Cincinnati, which are football powerhouses, who would be like, let's go. Let's play some ball.
Yeah.
And if you put them up against Creighton student body or Gonzaga student body, they'd kick their ass.
Yeah. No, there's no question about it. Xavier was my number 14 too. And the reason why is because it is a team that plays in Cincinnati, and the recruiting situation there would be pretty sick for them.
No. It's not even recruiting, because they don't play football. They choose not to. It's what is in your student body right now. And if I had to guess who has a better, who had the better cumulative high school football careers in the student body between Xavier, Creighton, and Gonzaga, it's Xavier.
Yeah, I guess it's kind of the same thing.
Because they probably have some dudes who played high-level high school football in Cincinnati with very good coaching, because Cincinnati's known for the quality of high school coaching. And I could whip a team together there a lot better than I could do the other places.
Plus, the ceiling is probably a little bit higher for the future.
Exactly. And then I got Creighton. Nebraska's a big football state.
Yep.
People love football there, so you get a bunch of people who want to come out. Gonzaga, that's tough in Spokane. That's Ryan Sandberg territory. We're playing Ryan Sandberg, John Stockton territory.
Were people saying if Gonzaga were to join the Pac-12 that they could assemble a football program?
I mean, I guess they could. The Big 12 is also because they've talked about Gonzaga joining the Big 12 as a non-football member. But what if they said, hey, we're going to start a football team.
We're going to give it a go. Yeah.
That'd be tough. And you know who would really be pissed if that happened? Washington State.
I think that would be tough for them. Yeah.
How
far away is Pullman from Spokane? Is it Spokane?
Spokane. 90 minutes.
There's no reason for the E on that word.
We have a lot of silent E's in the English language, Ari. It's okay.
That silent E is tricky. You can at least admit that that's a tricky silent E.
Not really. No, not tricky at all. But no.
Well, maybe I should go to Harvard then.
I take back everything I said about you figuring it out.
Yeah. So that was okay. Well, I think we had pretty similar rankings.
We did. I was shocked at how similar we were. So
no, we think about this stuff the same.
Well, yeah. Now here's what we need to do tomorrow. We need to rank the Sweet 16 currently of football programs, like using the last 4 or 5 years of results. Like, because here I've been thinking about this. Like Arkansas is in its 3rd consecutive Sweet 16, and if they win against UConn on whenever that is, Thursday or Friday, they're going to be in their 3rd consecutive Elite 8. Now, if you look at Arkansas's recruiting rankings and their regular season records over that time, especially this year, you wouldn't be like, that's a 3-time Elite 8 team. Like, that's not that type of team. But there's something to be said for just getting it done. And I think in football, we need to, because we've done so many of these pie in the sky, like if everything were perfect and you recruited, to your potential, what would you be? We need to be like, what are the 16 right now?
Yeah. Well, that's just a data-driven thing. I mean, I don't know that today was good because we could debate it.
Well, I do think it's here's the thing. You have some easy ones at the top, but I don't think it's that easy when you get to 5, below number 5, like, because you got to figure out what matters more. Does having one really good year, or 4 pretty consistent years, like what matters more? Like, where are you putting Penn State? Where are you putting Wisconsin? Like, are you putting Wisconsin in there right now? I do think with Luke Fickell, they'll be back in there pretty quick. But I do think that's an interesting one, because like where you put Baylor, which is kind of up and down, but has had some real high ups.
Oh yeah, especially if you're not constrained to the teams that are playing basketball right now.
Exactly. Well, we almost had Baylor and TCU in this one, but we didn't get it done. So
don't ever say TCU to me again. I can't. I'm never getting this car.
Oh my God.
It was a major setback for everyone.
As great as the video was in that Maction game we were watching.
Oh, it was way worse because there was so much more money.
I would give anything to have video of you watching that ball roll across midcourt and down toward the 3-point line, and having the TCU player pick it up and fire it.
Well, the thing that you didn't mention was when the free throws went in, how elated I was.
Oh yeah.
Like, I thought it was over. We did it. It's over. And then when they rolled the ball, once the ball passed midcourt, I was like, I screamed. And let's just say I'm happy that the baby has a sound machine, because it was a loud scream. And like, I honestly, can I just be a man and admit something?
Yes.
I almost cried. Like, I was like so beside myself. That was the worst bad beat of my life.
I mean, it feels like I'm watching it now. Oh, good God.
Oh,
and it's the indifference of the people on the court versus how badly this made a lot of people watching feel is probably the most interesting part. 0.7 seconds left, complete joke of a shot. And the guy who hits it, is it Mike Miles?
Look at the people in the stands too, because everybody in the stands is freaking out.
Oh yeah, because there's people with money on the game. Oh, you got guys dapping it up and hugging.
Yeah,
at the 3-point line. Oh, Jamie Dixon, Mark Few, just shaking hands,
shaking hands, having a good time. Nobody even realizes what just happened.
Wow, look at
so we're still up after the first weekend, which is good. But my chances of hitting the goal took a devastating shot.
Well, as you texted me last week, there is a 2001 Mercedes S-Class in Gainesville, Florida right now for sale with 109,000 miles on it. Was it 11 grand?
Yeah, that one is a little in rough shape, but like I would like to actually want. Here's the problem.
I tell you what, if you win it, if you get to that point and you want to do this,
we're gonna drive back together.
No, you buy it and I'll drive it to you. I'll deliver it.
I want to drive it first. What are you talking about? We're gonna stop at every Buc-ee's on the way. But the thing the thing that I want to be a car person, and like I have these visions of like being in the garage, like a real man, and like working on it, or I don't know anything about them.
Learn how to fix it. Learn how to fix a sunroof would be my advice to you.
I struggle.
I'm guessing that's the first thing you're going to have to fix.
I struggle with how to change my wiper fluid in my current car. So like, I think that I'm kind of a far off on that, but like, I do like the idea of buying.
You want a German car. They're pretty reliable. Like
they're also very expensive.
The internal parts of it are fairly reliable. But it's stuff like sunroof and all that. That's just.
Yeah. Like what if your window stops working? Like was that going to be a $2,000 repair? Because your automatic window dropped.
Well,
and they can't find the right part to fix it.
Right. That's the question. Do the parts still exist? Like that's one thing I've learned having a Ford pickup. Like if something breaks on my Ford pickup, there are 10 stores within 5 miles of me
that have every part
piece of that. And there's a YouTube video that shows me how to do it. Like I had a situation where my wipers wouldn't go off and I Googled it. And apparently it was a common problem on that model year of Ford pickup. I said, go buy this thing and here's how you fix it. And it took 10 minutes to buy and 10 minutes to fix. And it was done.
I'm happy that you're resourceful with that.
But I feel like, that doesn't, if I had a Mercedes, I wouldn't do that. Like there's not a YouTube video that would help me on that one.
We keep like throwing the word Mercedes around because it is a Mercedes, but it's a relatively inexpensive toy in comparison to other toys.
Well, it's only inexpensive if it doesn't break.
Right. And it probably will. But the thing with that year of Mercedes is that they're all hard tops and convertibles at the same time. So there's a very complicated mechanism for taking the roof off and making it a convertible. And if that breaks, apparently that's a $15,000 situation, which is more. Yeah. So it's like, you're almost like taking a risk of like, you can buy this, like buying it step one, hoping that it doesn't break is step two. But I'm like talking maybe driving it once a week. I'm not trying to drive it like as my everyday car. So I feel like if it's in good condition,
your daily driver.
Yeah. Yeah. We have a kid and there's only 2 seats. So, but I don't know. Maybe I'm just full of crap, Andy. I'm bored.
Well,
but
blame TCU, but who knows? The tournament is young. You got 2 more weekends left. I mean, think about
Miami future.
Think about the podcasting we could do if you bought the one here in town, and you
think that I could expense it?
The car?
Yeah. The gas?
Maybe the gas, yes. The flight to Gainesville to pick it up. Yes, if we do a podcast tour from there.
That's hilarious. Yeah. Yeah, the first thing I want to do with my 22-year-old car is drive it all around the South and put an extra 9,000 miles on it. But they do, here's the thing though. It's like if you find an SL 500 from that same year that only has 7,000 or 10,000 miles on it, it's like 70 grand.
Of course.
Like the ones that are really, really well kept
what grandma just kept that car in the garage and never drove.
There's a lot of them. There's surprisingly a lot of really pristine cars in there. But I don't know. People don't care about this anymore, I think. So we can wrap it up. But if you have any advice about this, let me know.
8-minute mark of the podcast. It's only true believers in us now.
I'm assuming that there is an intersection between college football fans and like car people. So like if you are a person that has knowledge about this, I would love to hear from you.
I guarantee there's somebody listening who is laughing at us as we're talking about the difficulty of fixing, like somebody who can fix Mercedes and
it's
has
a gift.
No problem. And I'm with you. So I think you can turn into that person, but the problem is, as you said, with older foreign cars is just the parts sometimes cost a lot of money and you can't change that.
And also too, aren't like oil changes for a Mercedes like $500, $700, $800? Just like even routine maintenance on that car is probably really expensive.
I don't know about that. Now my wife has a German vehicle, but
yeah. And how much does it cost for regular maintenance?
We've yet to pay for an oil change. It was part of the deal when you buy it. Like
my wife also has a German car.
5 years they changed the oil, so
she paid for the maintenance up front too. So I have no idea, but like I don't know how much it costs to take a 19 or a car that's.
Meanwhile, I know exactly what to do to change mine because I've changed it.
You change your own oil. I go to Valvoline and pay $60 and have a Big Mac in the car while they're doing it.
I changed it once, and I'm happy to let somebody else change it for me. It's fine, but at least I know how. But again,
are you allowed to eat a hamburger in your front seat while someone changes your oil? That's how I get mine done.
I don't do the one where you just drive over the thing.
No. Oh, I just drive over the thing. They do it full synthetic. I got a bag of fries on the seat next to me. I'm just living the dream.
No, I go to the dealership and, so no. Yeah. But yes, at least but the thing is, mine is simple. It's a very simple process. Pull the oil plug, drain it out, replace the oil plug, replace the oil filter, dump the new oil in. You're good. And make sure you put a little oil around the filter cap before you screw it in there. But yeah, but that's a pretty easy process. I don't think it's as easy with the car you're talking about. So we'll find out. I am waiting. I want you to win this, and I want you to buy the one here, and I want us to drive it back.
Yeah. Can you imagine?
2 seats. One for you, one for me. Microphones in the middle.
Trunk for all the road snacks. Let's do it. All right, Andy. Well, it's good to see your face again. I'm happy we're back at it, and we'll we're ready to ride.
Sweet 16 of football tomorrow. We'll be back.